Greetings and welcome back to this next installment of Bible Topics that make you say, "Hmm." All right. What do I have in store for you today? I'm glad you asked. This is going to be a longer discussion than normal. It's a very sensitive issue, and I invite you to join me in asking yourself, how should you view illegal immigrants? Not immigration, legal immigration, but illegal immigration. How should you view the immigrants themselves, the illegal immigrants or the undocumented workers? We used to call them illegal aliens, although on the Republican side, they still call them that. Look at this picture, it's very sad. So we see these families trying to get in. This baby with her pillow. Looks like she's in her pajamas. Stop separating the families. Immigrants make America great. And there's others that say, no, deport them. Mr. President, our border is not secure, coming from Texas. And they're arresting them. Some may not know what ICE stands for. That's funny, police, ICE, ICE, ICE. It's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Remember these babies being wrapped up like burritos in these aluminum blankets or whatever. Remember that a few years ago? It was so sad. I live here in Long Beach and they had shut down because you remember everything was shut down during the pandemic. And so convention center was already shut down. And my husband let me know that they had used a portion of it to store these kids. And when I would go for my walk, you couldn't see inside anymore. They had the windows covered so you couldn't see inside. And they had guards around so that you couldn't get close. It was very sad. My heart breaks. I used to pray for those children all the time to be reunited with their families because it was really so sick that the government went ahead and took these children from their parents, but didn't keep the necessary documentation so they could be reunited. If you don't want these people here, why keep their kids? Common viewpoints about illegal immigrants, and I get my sources from the internet. This source comes from just the Britannica Encyclopedia in America magazine. It says undocumented immigrants have broken the law that legal immigrants have followed and should not be rewarded for their crimes with the benefits of citizenship. Such actions incentivize lawbreaking. The United States needs to enforce immigration laws already in place, and that a path that stops short of citizenship would be a more appropriate and humane approach to undocumented immigrants who get here and have slipped through the cracks. 52% of Americans believe the nation is experiencing an invasion on the the southern border. And 49% say that migrants are responsible for an uptick in U.S. drug overdoses because they are transporting fentanyl and other drugs. What do you think? Is this your viewpoint? Is there some truth to this? And if so, shouldn't they be arrested and sent back? Illegal immigration statistics coming from CNN and Fact Check and Fair US. Many researchers crunching the numbers have found there's no connection between immigration and crime. Some have even found that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than people born in the US. However, accurate numbers are hard to come by since immigration status isn't always recorded. So since when a person commits a crime, it isn't always asked whether or not they're a legal or illegal immigrant, or if they're an immigrant at all, it's hard to say whether or not crime can be attached to them or not. Illegal migration cost the American taxpayer approximately $182.1 billion annually as of the beginning of 2023. And at the time of this recording, it was 2024. By the time you see it, it'll be 2025. Illegal migrants only contribute around 31.4 billion in taxes at the state and federal levels, meaning that illegal immigration costs American taxpayers a net of at least $150.7 billion annually. Is it no wonder that people are up in arms about illegal immigration? Look at this, all these people coming in. Some of them are seeking asylum. They're genuine refugees. Others are not, but they just want a better life. Wouldn't you try to get to a better land if you could find it? Even if it meant climbing over barbed fences? Statistics continue. Between October 2019 and June 2024, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, reported that just under 11 million border encounters nationwide. That's roughly equivalent to the current population of North Carolina, the ninth most populous state. Scary. When you believe that your resources are going to be taken by someone who legally doesn't even belong here. And the illegal immigrants can make it harder for the legal immigrants to get status, right? Because once you're being classified as a legal immigrant, next you want to become a citizen. And that's a whole nother process in and of itself. But what's going on? Why are people leaving their countries? Because I'm going to ask you to step into someone else's shoes after I read this. Push factors are negative circumstances that drive people out of their countries of origin, like violence, insecurity, and famine in places like Guatemala, Honduras. I've been to Honduras on vacation. So beautiful, so beautiful. In fact, my daughter said that she wanted to move to Honduras because the kids didn't go to school here. I said, girl, we're traveling during December when kids are out, just like you're out on vacation. And El Salvador. Pull factors are circumstances that make migrating enticing, including a strong economy, such as we have, weak points in immigration enforcement, such as we have, and a market for transnational smugglers who promise entry into the U.S. Sadly, these smugglers really rape these people of their money and their bodies and even their lives, promising them to get them to this country. I often say that people would rather stay in their own countries if it was safe to do so and they could make a living. So I ask you, if America collapsed in and of itself, would you rush to try to go to Canada? Would you hope Canada would let you in, legally or otherwise? And let's say Mexico got their government together and you want to go to Mexico or anywhere else, flying over to Europe. Because if this country turns into the Handmaid's Tales, I've seen the series as well as read the book. America is no longer the America we know today. It became Gilead, where these Christian nationalists took over. They didn't call themselves that in the series or what have you, but they're trying to take over America. And again, at the time of this recording, the election had not been had, the 2024 presidential election. And I pray that the Democrats get the House and the Senate and the presidency this time. And I'm not even a Democrat, but that's how I feel about the lunatic on the other side. Anyway, this is what causes these people to leave, as the violence, the injustices. So some of these are seeking asylum, either political asylum or they're just refugees. And the reason why this is sensitive to me and it's hard for me to just say, throw them back, don't let them in, is because over 100 years ago, people who looked like me were running away to get freedom and they were trying to get to Canada. And Canada welcomed them. Not always was it with open arms, but for the most part, they welcomed these people. They were running for their lives, and some of these people are running for their lives. And if they're returned, they're certain that they're going to be murdered. People who ran away in slavery, it was certain they were either going to be maimed, for sure beaten, or even killed. How should you view illegal immigrants? What's the biblical viewpoint on illegal immigration? As we acknowledge that illegal immigration is a violation of the law, we must not lose sight of the humanity inherent in others. They are individuals, men, women, and children, who possess an intrinsic value and worth bestowed upon them by God. And those who are so against these immigrants, making the Haitian legal immigrants in Ohio appear to be like animals eating cats and dogs, is a way to dehumanize these people so they can be attacked and thrown back where they came from, even though they were here legally. But these politicians aren't saying that. The one running for vice president and president on the Republican side, we have to see them as humans, not as vermin. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. When the Jews began to be seen as less than human, that's why it was so easy for the average German to turn a blind eye to their fellow Jewish neighbors who once they were friends with get rounded up like cattle and sent off to die in concentration camps. How could they do that? It's because they no longer saw them as humans and they saw them as animals taking away from them, and they made them the reason for all of their problems. They're the reason why they're broke. They're the reason why they can't get enough health care. They are the reason. This necessitates a form of response from both the government and its citizens that safeguards the rights of all, upholds the rule of law, and embodies compassion and grace. I like this. No human being is illegal. Yeah, we all are meant to be on this earth. So where does America, who claims to be a Christian nation, how do they reconcile this situation? Let's continue. What is the biblical solution to illegal immigration? Simple. Don't do it. It's what gotquestions.org is. And I go to this a lot when I do Bible topics. Obey the laws. Disobedience is not a biblical option. If it is your conviction that an immigration law is unjust, do everything that is legally within your power to get the law changed. Pray, petition, vote, peacefully protest, etc. As Christians, we should be the first to seek to change any law that is unjust. At the same time, we are also to demonstrate our submission to God by obeying the government he has placed in authority over us. So these people say, stop illegal immigration, return to sender. In other words, return them back to the country of origin. Let's unpack some scriptures. Leviticus 19:33 and 34 says, when a foreigner lives with you in your land, you must not oppress him. This is God speaking to the Jews. You must regard the foreigner who lives with you as the native born among you. Treat them as yourselves, as your Jewish neighbors. You are to love on him as yourself, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Let that sink in. Exodus 23 and 9 says, you must not oppress a foreign resident. You yourselves know how it feels to be a foreigner because you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. They were enslaved in the land of Egypt. And they were treated poorly. And God wanted to remind them, because the people he was speaking to had just come out of Egypt. How you were treated was terrible. Don't treat someone else that way. And that's one of the reasons why I say I'm sensitive to how to treat these people because my people were once enslaved and were running away for their freedom. And still, we've got to fight for our freedoms. To this day, I never thought the Supreme Court could overturn laws that were already in place that they helped to put in place. Why is the voting rights still a thing? That was a part of the Civil Rights Act back in the 60s. Why are states still suppressing the vote? I don't get it. You got to keep fighting for rights to keep them. And that's crazy because a right implies that's something you should have be born with. Romans 13, 1 through 5, though, tells us everyone must submit to the governing authorities. And there were some, when the enslaved were running away, even if they didn't get all the way to Canada, they got to the north where there was supposedly freedom. And there were people trying to help them. And they decided to obey God instead of man and these unjust laws because it should not be legal to enslave someone. So that's how they felt and they helped them. The Quakers were an amazing group of people. And one of the reasons why I can't hate white people is because the Quakers were white by and large, and they put their necks out literally to save people who look like me from slavery. First one again, everyone must submit to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist are instituted by God. So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do good, and you will have its approval. For government is God's servant to you for good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. For government is God's servant, an avenger that brings wrath on the one who does wrong. Therefore, you must submit, not only because of the wrath, but also because of your conscience. So when I'm not speeding and a cop drives by, I have no fear. I know he's not pulling me over. I ain't doing nothing wrong. But what happens if you are speeding? You start to slow down and hope he didn't see you. Romans 13, 6 and 7. So if you obey the law, the thought is you should be good. But if you break the law, God gives governments the right to punish you and to set their laws, even their border laws, even their immigration laws. And we're supposed to abide by them according to that scripture. Romans 13, 6 and 7 says, and for this reason, you pay taxes. We may not want to. Even Jesus paid taxes, since the authorities are God's public servants, continually attending to these tasks. Pay your obligations to everyone. Taxes to those you owe taxes, tolls to those you owe tolls, respect to those you owe respect, and honor to those you owe honor. Hebrews 13, 1 through 3 goes on to say, let brotherly love continue. Don't neglect to show hospitality, for by doing this, some have welcomed angels as guests without knowing it. Remember, Abraham didn't know he was serving angels. Remember the prisoners as though you were in prison with them, and the mistreated as though you yourselves were suffering bodily. Hold on to this scripture and think about how you treat people. And if you know that they're immigrants, legal or illegal, how do you treat them? Do you treat them with compassion? James 2, 14 through 18 says, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can his faith save him? If a brother or sister is without clothes and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and eat well, but you don't give them what the body needs, what good is that? That's just words. For the same way faith is, if it doesn't have works, it is dead by itself. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without works, and I will show you my faith from my works. I like to go and walk in God. I pray to God to direct me to whom I should give money to. And I have a $1 trillion bill that looks like a $5 bill with scriptures on one side and something to make you think. But if I just handed those out to the homeless people, they would just throw that away. I'm giving them, they need food, and I'm giving them fake money. What I do is I wrap it in a $5 bill so that they're getting the gospel and a little something, to help get them something to eat. to add to maybe what they already have. Why am I mentioning that? Not to toot my horn, but just to say it's not enough to say, go in peace, keep warm, and eat well, but then give them nothing to do that with. Matthew 25 and 35 says, Jesus says, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. And that you do this to the least one of these brothers, Jesus goes on to say, you've done it to me. Look at these people as if it's Jesus, is what he's encouraging us to do. So again, how should you view illegal immigrants? Let's contrast the biblical viewpoint versus the legal viewpoint. Yahweh encourages a compassionate view, as we've seen from the scriptures. Jesus says taking care of the least is taking care of him. And wouldn't you say they're the least? We're also told to take care of orphans and widows. And some of these people trying to come into this country illegally fit that description. Nevertheless, governments have a right to enforce laws. Stop illegal immigration. Close borders now. Immigrants, yes. Illegals, no. But look at these babies. Can you say no to them? Those seeking to immigrate, even refugees, though, must adhere to the laws. True Christians show compassion, but should they obey man's laws or God's laws? You decide. Whatever you do, seek God's viewpoint on illegal immigrants. So how do I feel about the situation? I want to follow the law. And if I can give food and clothing, water, money to an illegal immigrant and I know they're illegal, I'm going to do that. But am I going to call ICE to turn them in? I'm not going to do that. So one day, righteous people will inherit the earth. Psalm 37, 11 and 29 says this, but the humble will inherit the land and will enjoy abundant prosperity. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it permanently. There's going to come a time when the earth is going to be beautified. I know we're looking for heaven. The Bible helps us to also appreciate he's going to transform the earth into a paradise as well. And we'll all be united, regardless of race. No one will be rich. No one will be poor and hungry. We'll all have more than enough in abundance with no borders blocking us from one another. All right. This has been a long lesson. Thank you for tuning in with me. I want you to drop your thoughts in the comments. How do you view this situation? How would you deal with it if in your face you were faced with an illegal immigrant, right? Or undocumented worker? Okay, then if you don't know Jesus, I invite you to invite him into your heart today and ask him to forgive you of your sins and you fully repent. Get that Bible, read it because it is his love letter to you, and find a Bible-believing church. And in the meantime, you can join us on Zoom live for Bible study every other Sunday. Go to my main page, find my email address, email me, and I'll send you that information. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe so that you don't miss an upload. And I upload weekly, and that way you can feed yourself then. All right. Welcome back next time, and you'll see what I have in store for you then. Be blessed. These pictures beautiful. Oh my goodness. I can't wait for the earth to look like this all over, where no one will be treated less than. We'll all have more than enough.